1, 2,
Standing
go.
by.
Everybody, you're listening to and possibly watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
And I'm Steve Morey.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or as I said, possibly stream in. We're only 2 men strong tonight because our brother Caleb had kind of a hectic trip back from his vacation in Greece. So he needed the time to decompress and get caught up. So with that, and given that neither of us, I don't think, we haven't confirmed this with you, Steve, but I don't think you've gotten your most recent DCBS box yet.
Oh, no, not at all.
So those haven't arrived. So given that circumstance, given that we were in a bit of upheaval with what happened to Caleb, we decided we're going to do something a little different for this episode. Now, if you know Steve's other work, his extracurricular activity as a podcaster for another concern, which is the Bear Cave of Terror, and we have stuff to talk about that as well. I thought, well, maybe let's be like a little bear cave-ish right now. We've entered Halloween month, and let's talk about horror movies that were based on comic books. Now, we're just going to do English language comic books. If it went beyond that, of course, there's a lot of anime that was based on manga. Manga, Jesus Christ, that's so bad. Manga. And, we're also not going to be talking about works that are based on European comics like Dylan Dog. Oh, my God. Boy, did New Jersey come out there. Dylan Dog. All right. But we have a bunch of films that we're going to get through, and we're basically going to cover like everything that's been a theatrical release. We're not going to talk about every film in depth. Some of them we haven't seen, but we just are going to go through the history and talk about what we know about the films that we saw and enjoyed and some that we didn't enjoy. And I hope you enjoy this hour to 90 minutes that we're going to go through this cinematic journey with you. So how has the last 2 weeks been for you, Steve?
It's been pretty good. As you mentioned, I am doing the sort of side podcast to this. It's a Comic Book Bears Presents Bear Cave of Terror, and I've had several more episodes that I've recorded since then. And we're putting them out weekly. We're putting them out on Sundays. So if you're interested in seeing a bunch of really great guest hosts, including this gentleman over here,
point the other way. Point the other way.
Or this way.
There we go.
I mean, on my screen, it's this way. So it's on Bill's screen, I point over here. On my screen, I point over here. But basically, I'll have a guest host on. They come in and they talk about, a particular movie that they absolutely love. And then I watch it and also do a lot of research, try to get some cool facts and stuff to talk about with the, behind the scenes. So, but that's been what I've been working on the past couple of weeks. Work's been kind of crazy because we're doing some crazy stuff is happening corporate wise. That's been my life. How about yours?
Well, in the time since we've been together, which was 2 weeks, I went to my first bear event in ages. And if you can see this here, you probably won't be able to see it, but it was the Rehoboth Beach Bears.
Hmm.
In Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. I saw a lot of friends I haven't seen in a long time. I met a lot of people who've only been an online presence in my life. So it was a really good time, and I really want to do it again. I really, really want to do it again. And then the next weekend, AC/DC were playing in the area. So I saw them at this great venue in Bensalem, PA, called the Broken Goblet. Just fantastic venue.
Oh, cool.
And then I couldn't see them the next night because I was seeing Elbow in Philadelphia, and they were great as well. But I did spend the day with some of the members shopping in New Jersey, and one of them is one of my geek heads. So I had a good couple of weeks. Same situation with you. Very, very busy at work until today. Today was the first day in like 2.5 months where it wasn't insane.
Mm-hmm.
There's a new project that's amping up. And then I also have my attendance at Out and Equal, the LGBT corporate conference in Seattle, which will be week after next. And then next week I'll be going to 2 days of New York Comic Con. So I have plenty of stuff going on. And this weekend I have 2 concerts. Yeah. So it's I've been busy. Yeah.
You've been busy, and you still got some busy coming up, which is pretty good. And especially that New York Comic Con. That's going to be pretty exciting. I know that Baltimore Comic Con is coming up later this month. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think either of us are going to be able to go to that one, but
no.
Yeah,
unless things like there's a seismic shift, we're not going.
Some miracles happen.
And it's a shame because we both love that show.
I know.
And it's I know you've gone through this. It's like been the last 2 weeks. Are you going to Baltimore Comic Con? Are you going to Baltimore Comic Con? No, you're going to Baltimore Con. And it's a shame because it's a con we really like. If it was up to me and a bank account that was 7 times the size, I'd probably be at a con every other week.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Plus, one of the best things about going to a con, like other than, I know you find a lot of great stuff when you go bin diving. I mean, there's always something that you come out with that's a pretty cool find. And this last year, I at Heroes Con this last summer, I kind of joined you in that crusade of looking for some interesting stuff. But one of my favorite parts is actually getting to see people and, getting to be on panels or getting to watch panels, and listen to some really great creators talk and, getting to see some old friends and, hang out by somebody's table and, steal their focus for a couple hours. But that's just a lot of fun. And I'm going to miss not being at Baltimore this year, but the cool thing is I know that I'm going to be living vicariously through you while you're at New York Comic Con, which I've only been to once. And now you've been to several times, but I'm
it's probably the con I've been
riding
to
along spiritually.
It probably is I've been to every New York Comic Con except the first 2.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. The best was the first time I went, and that's when it was much smaller, and they had the con going at the same time in the Javits as there was a convention of Methodist choirs, and that was really cool. Like that was. I mean,
wow.
Just think of the look of these like Midwesterners, prim and proper, and there's like some dude, with like his ass hanging out for some costume. It was cool. It was really cool.
All these people walking by with spandex and no dance belts. Like, come on.
It was very cool. But we're doing that. I'm getting older, and I don't know how many years I have left with convention going. Maybe in a scooter, maybe that'll help. But
hover around.
But I will be at New York Comic Con. I will be staying in Jersey City because I had to use my points, or else like I lost everything with the Hilton's rewards program. I mostly get like Bonvoy with Marriott, but I did have some Hilton stuff, and it was like either you use these points or
They're
you'd
going
lose
away.
everything. So I was like, all right, I'm staying in Jersey City for one night. So, and that'll be nice, not going back and forth to home.
Yeah.
It'll still be a little bit of travel, but not crazy. So that's next week. So we won't be together in 2 weeks, probably in 3 weeks. We got to talk about this.
Yeah.
But the next time we'll do a CBB show. But for this show, we're not talking about comic books in the traditional funny book form. We are talking about comic book films, specifically comic book horror films.
Yeah.
And this was an interesting exercise because I think we both learned a lot about the history of
You can't.
comic book horror films, and that it was there's not a lot, but there are some very important ones.
Yeah.
And in the case of two particular British films, very early cinematic films based on comic book properties.
Absolutely. And, one of the reasons that we picked, horror movies, of course, we're in spooky season. We're going to talk about horror
All right,
comics.
let's just do it to get out of the way. Spooky Halloween!
Spooky Halloween!
Okay. That's a salute to another podcast.
Yes, and we love them. But yeah, I this was really cool because there are some movies that have come out that are comic book films, but a lot of people don't necessarily equate them to comic books because maybe the film itself just became so popular mainstream, and before the glut of superhero movies, that people just didn't really think of it in that context.
Yeah,
and or comic book related movies, especially if they're not overtly comic booky seeming. And there are a couple of those that came out between the 90s and the 2000s where you're like, oh, that was based on a comic? Huh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And
particularly
some of these,
the early 2000s. Particularly the early 2000s.
There's a lot of those interesting.
And also there's a lot of films that have a foot in horror and a foot in superheroes.
Absolutely.
And again, there's maybe situations where the cinematic experience may be less horror based, but where the character came from certainly was from a horror based comic. So we're talking about those. Yeah.
And I just I had a lot of fun looking these up, and some of them obviously I've seen and I love them. Yeah. But some I was just a little like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
There's a couple I have not seen. I have not seen.
And one of the things that we did sort of talk about, and Bill already mentioned this, we are really only looking at the ones that got a theatrical release. Like we might mention the ones that kind of like, got a little, fleeting appearance in like 2 theaters in LA, and
especially with some of the franchises we're talking about, they did have a size, at least 2 of them had sizable amounts of video, direct to video release, which is kind of an antiquated term, but still fits for what we're talking about. Yeah.
Now I think you can just say direct to streaming. But that's not always a good way of talking about it too, because some of them do come out still in physical media at the same time. So, but especially lately, there was one release, at least one release last year that I was really looking forward to. That definitely was a straight to streaming, and unfortunately, so did not get a lot of views. It did hit some theaters somewhere in the world, but definitely didn't make much money or have a lot of people see it. So, but so Bill, what or where or when should we start? Like, what's a good starting place for this?
We should start way back in 1972 or 1973.
72 and 3.
72 and 3. No, yes, it's 72 was the first one.
So let me see if I can pull up those posters while you chat for a second. Let's vamp.
Well, I'm going to vamp. So we're talking about films that are from 72 and 73 respectively. There is a lot of connected tissue between the 2 of them, and they are based on comics from the 1950s. So and it's an interesting situation because these are both British-made films,
Mm-hmm.
but distinctly American in terms of
Yes.
the subject material, in terms of the core material. So, do you have things queued up?
All right,
Because
I
I
do.
think it's going to surprise some people that these films even exist.
Yeah.
So the first one we're going to be talking about is Tales from the Crypt. Yes, that's a familiar name. Originally, the title of one of the EC Comics horror anthologies that came out in the 1950s. And Hammer Films' big competitor in Britain was Amicus Films.
Yeah.
And they put this film together. There is a crypt keeper. He's much more genteel than
Yeah.
than the one that you may be used to from the television series. But there is a crypt keeper that gathers together individuals to talk about some stories that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And again, one of the hallmarks of the EC Comics was the O. Henry twist at the end, and this film definitely did not disappoint in that. So, why don't you give us some basics about Tales from the Crypt from 1972?
Well, I actually, I really love this movie, and I actually did this. I do every year for the past. This is now the third year. I do a 31 days of horror movies,
Mhm.
and this was my October 2nd movie as well. So,
Mhm.
it's very fresh in my mind. They had, I believe, they had basis on 5 different stories from 3 different EC comics. So, of
Yeah,
course, Tales from the Crypt, but also Vault of Horror and Haunt of Fear, which I think is
yeah,
probably one of the lesser known ones. But each of these stories did appear in one of those comics back in the 50s, all written from, Al Feldstein, Johnny Craig, Bill Gaines. I mean, they were all,
yeah. Johnny
you know,
Craig was an artist. He wasn't a writer.
well, Johnny, yeah, but
Yeah.
he was one of the co-creators that was credited on this. And so the stories themselves are revamped for, a 1970s audience. And although like the subject matter is it generally is pretty American. It's been tweaked a little bit so that it makes a little bit more sense for a British audience. But this had a little bit more of an international appeal. Obviously, this is an American property, Tales from the Crypt, and so it did have a bit of a following over here as well when it was released. And like Bill had said, you have 5 random people that are drawn into this underground crypt on a tour of some ancient catacombs from the time of Henry VIII. And they get waylaid a bit and end up in this room where Sir Ralph Richardson, playing the crypt keeper, brings them up one by one to basically live a story that details why they're there. And that just kind of puts that person, back into a perspective of and reenacting one of each of these tales from the comics. Probably the most recognizable story from this was the Joan Collins one, because they actually redid that. I think more than once in later episodes of Tales from the Crypt when
Mhm.
it was on TV back, down in the late 80s, early 90s. But also, I think in another anthology film that was completely unrelated. And that was the one where she kills her husband on Christmas Eve. And over the radio, the announcer says, to look out because there is an escaped mental patient, a murderous individual dressed up as Santa Claus. And lo and behold, he shows up at her house. And she can't call the cops because she's just murdered her hubby and his body's still not hidden there. So she has to figure out how to hide the body, but also keep the house safe
Mhm.
from this crazed, Santa Claus. Of course, the big twist here is that her little girl is so excited to see Santa, sees him through the window and opens the door for him. And of course, he
Mhm.
comes in and strangles poor Joan Collins. But there's some other really fantastic stories in here.
Mhm.
One of them, and Bill, I know that the relationship between the two gentlemen in the story featuring Peter Cushing as Mr. Grimsdyke, poor Mr. Grimsdyke, are supposed to be a father and son. But honestly, the relationship really comes across as like sugar daddy and his bitchy queen younger
Yeah.
boyfriend.
Uh,
I know, but
yeah.
um, but there's
Sometimes you're just looking for stuff. Yeah.
exactly. But it's also very
This
British.
one, it felt like there was a decent amount of ammunition.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe this neighborhood is going to pot because of
property
blah, blah, blah.
values are going so far down because of this awful,
This awful gentleman.
he's a dustman. Yeah,
he's a dustman. He gives toys to children, and he has dogs.
And all the
like,
children enjoy it. Yeah.
But Peter Cushing, of course, making a great turn in this one as the poor victim turned, supernatural spirit of vengeance.
And a part, if you read about this, a part he lobbied for.
Really?
He was offered another role, and he was adamant that because most of the characters he played were posh, and he was adamant about which role that he wanted in this one.
I'm glad he did. He did a great job.
Yep,
he was fascinating as this poor older man who was just still in love with his dead wife, and just cared so much about his neighborhood and all of that, and it was just really. It was really sad to see what happened to him. Of course, he was able to share the comeuppance with with the person responsible for his downfall. But I mean, it's just like most Tales from the Crypt stories. The people who are bad are punished, usually in a very twisty, ironic way. And of course, the reveal at the end is that they're all dead. And off they are in hell. And
you didn't have to spoil that for them. You didn't have to spoil
it's not spoiling anything. This movie is 50 years old.
But this was one of the films that I watched very recently in prep for tonight. Yeah. And one thing that I really appreciated is the source material, the EC comics from the 50s. That's something I find distinctly American. It's American locales, American conflicts, American language, and how well this translated across the sea, because this is a very British film. These are very British treatments of the story, that there's a universality to these stories, to this type of horror story. And that's something I really appreciated. And I also think with people that are, modern viewers, we mentioned two actors in Joan Collins and Peter Cushing. These are very familiar names to genre, the people who watch genre films. So this, and then the next one that we're going to talk about, which I'm not sure if you have watched, but I haven't. Okay. So I have a few things to say about what is, the spiritual sequel, I would say, to this. Which is, and if you can bring up that poster there, The Vault of Horror. Again, another film from Amicus Studios, which came out the following year in 1973. Same format, apart from the absence of a host. I forget what the name of the vault. There was a name for the
Vault Dweller or something like not Vault Dwellers. That's anyway, that's Fallout. But
but just like the Tales from the Crypt film, this featured 5 stories, again, all based on stories from EC Comics. And I think in this particular one, it was even more so a situation where they were pulling stories from books that were not Vault of Horror.
And
it was mostly some of that was because, and at the time in the 1970s, it's not like it is today where they have these nice bound volumes of archives. There were a few paperbacks that were easily available that reprinted it, and that was it. So, with these stories, I think 4 of them were actually from Tales from the Crypt, and one was from Two Fisted Tales.
Shock suspense stories.
Sorry about that. Yep. So same this difference. Is, as I said, very much a spiritual sequel. The conceit, instead of what we had with the visitation to a crypt, the vault was actually a sub basement in an office building.
Mm-hmm.
And what a cool device of having the I hate saying it, but protagonists of the 5 stories enter into the elevator that goes down. It's such a cool device. And also with Vault of Horror, there's one amazing jump scare. Which before they even had the term jump scare, they employed it there.
Cool.
And there's some cool, there's some very cool stories. My favorite one was the one with Terry Thomas and Glynis Johns, where he has married in middle age and he's a neat freak. And what happens when you marry somebody and the other person isn't a neat freak and isn't bound by regimented times and customs, and how far that can go. There also is a very cool story about a brother and sister and the dispute over inheritance. And the actor and actress playing those characters are brother and sister in real life. Which gives it just such a cool feel, especially with what happens. And also, this is a film. This is one of the films from Tom Baker. Probably before the reboot, the most famous Doctor Who, and seeing him in a different context, in his story, which also includes Denholm Elliott from Raiders of the Lost Ark and the other Indiana Jones films. Again, some familiar names even for people today. And again, I was just so impressed with how these stories traveled, because again, with this film, distinctly British. And I think you're going to love it. I actually liked overall, I liked Vault of Horror more than I liked Tales from the Crypt.
Interesting. Well, I think with Tales from the Crypt, I was familiar with a couple of the stories already. I had either read them or seen them redone in later years with different cast. But yeah, this one I did actually find out that it was marketed in some places as Tales from the Crypt 2.
Yes.
So sometimes even more than a spiritual sequel, it was like pushed as like an actual sequel, even though it's an anthology and really, there's no returning cast necessarily. So.
Right. And also in terms of something that we see today with the phenomenon of the PG-13 horror film, both of these had PG ratings, but that was only due to some scenes being cut for this one. And the print that's most easily available now is the uncut version with the 2 scenes that were problematic and that did get cut, kind of sanitized a little bit for the original US release. So, but good stuff, really good stuff.
Cool. I'll definitely. I can't wait to check this one out. I'll put it on my list to watch at some point. Maybe not this month, because this month my card is full. But but I will put it on for something else. But yeah, but these weren't the last of the Tales from the Crypt movies. There were actually 2 more, at least theatricals released ones. Of course, they came after the TV series. So the TV series, of course, came out in the late 80s. I think it was like 1989 or 1990 that the TV show started.
I feel like it's earlier than that. I feel like it might be 88.
It could be. I know it was late 80s.
Yeah.
And it lasted for a good chunk of time. I think it was like 9 seasons altogether. But
and even led to an animated series.
Yes, I have no idea why they made it to a cartoon, but I think the character of that Crypt Keeper became a pretty big cultural phenomenon. So people wanted to see more of him and see more of what they could do with this franchise. So of course, the show was very popular. It was premium cable. It was I wouldn't say big budget, but it was it was competently made. And they didn't
big
really
names associated with it.
Exactly. Lots of directors and writers and actors
and Spielberg.
So in the mid 90s, they decided, hey, maybe we can actually make some big screen money from this. and they decided to do. I think they'd actually already had the plans for the 2 movies, but they put out the first one, and that was Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight. And this one I actually did see in the movie theater. I was probably, was it 96 that it came out?
Let me
95,
check my list
96?
here. I already screwed up with 72 and 73.
Oh,
It was 1995
95.
with the
So
next one coming in 1996.
yes, so I saw this in the theater. I was I was a teenager, but I was still able to get in. I mean, I don't think they were as strict, in the 90s as much. But yeah, I mean, this was a lot of fun. It had a young Jada Pinkett Smith, or Jada Pinkett at the time,
Mm-hmm.
as sort of our main heroine here, and it takes place in a hotel, sort of in the middle of nowhere, sort of like a flop house almost, where the titular Demon Knight arrives, and essentially it's his burden, his task to stop demons from taking over the world. And he's been able to fight them for so long, but of course he's nearing the end of his battle. And the head demon shows up. I believe it's Billy Zane who plays him, to get into this house, and of course, be able to kill the Demon Knight and take over. And Jada Pinkett ends up taking the mantle eventually in the film. So it's fun. I wouldn't say it's really ironic and twisty, which makes it a little bit different from what you would expect in a Tales from the Crypt movie.
But I think that shortened vignette works for that conceit much better than something like extended as a full film. And I think it's harder to pull that off. When you have that much bandwidth to tell a story. Yeah.
Which it was fun. There's some fun moments. There was
we
some
got a lot
scares.
of films to go through, Steve. So
absolutely. And then of course the next one was Bordello of Blood in '96, starring everybody's favorite jerk, Dennis Miller. This was about vampires. There you go.
Right.
It did not do well. It was not very popular.
A lot of vampires, though. We got a lot of vampires.
A lot of vampires. Vampires make for good movies.
Yeah.
They make for a good box office draw usually.
Yeah.
Not so much in this one, but
yeah.
But yeah, so those were like the big 4 Tales from the Crypt films. Now there hasn't been one since then that's been released in the movie theaters. So, I don't know.
It's a recognizable name. I'm sure at some point we'll get something else.
I hope so. But I part of me thinks that mantle's kind of been taken over by the Creep Show series.
Possibly, but
yeah,
things go in cycles.
Exactly. Yeah. So, which is really funny because Creep Show is one of those things where it started out as a movie pretending to be based on a comic book, and now it is a comic book. And also a series of TV shows.
Series of stuff.
So, but yeah, so like, I mean, that's starting off with the oldest. Now, we did have something that came out in the 80s.
Yes, we did. And actually there was 2 films that came out, and this is the first of the ones that we're going to be talking about that's a big 2 property. And what we're talking about in terms of what we're talking about, first is 1982 saw the cinematic debut of Swamp Thing from DC Comics in a film directed by Wes Craven. And do you have a video? Do you have an image for that there?
I do. And it was disappeared for a second, but I've got it back. There we go.
While you're waiting, I can show off my home copy. This is on DVD. I have not gotten an upgrade to Blu-ray because they're kind of the Swamp Thing came out from boutique labels. First from Olive, and then from or maybe Shout Factory first, and then the current one. I forget what the imprint is, but they're not cheap. But I do have the standard MGM DVD of Swamp Thing, and it deviates a little bit from the comic book.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of particularly Abby Cable in this version is Alice Cable, played by Adrienne Barbeau, who's instead of merely being the niece of the principal villain Anton Arcane, she's actually a government agent, or in some of the materials that they put the actual materials when they released this film, a sexy government agent.
She is a sexy government agent.
Yeah. Now I assume you've seen this.
I have. It's been a while, but yeah, I remember watching this. I think the interesting thing is that I had been a big fan of the TV series that was running on USA in the early 90s, because it was actually the #1 show on USA at the time. And they put a lot of emphasis on it. It ran for 70 plus episodes or something like that.
4 seasons.
Oh yeah.
4 seasons.
But they actually had on the Sci-Fi Channel, they did show Swamp Thing. And I think because I didn't have a lot of the premium cable channels. I usually had to wait until it was on commercial TV. But on Sci-Fi Channel, they played Swamp Thing. And I'm talking SCIFI channel, so it's that old. They played the first one. I did not see the second one. The Return of the Swamp Thing. But this one was interesting because if you watch the TV show, it's the exact same actor or stunt actor who plays the Swamp Thing, Dick Durock. Yeah. And, so that's an interesting through line, is that he played it through both of the movies as well as through the whole TV show.
And he since passed away. And if you read about him, he sounds like one of these people that no one had a bad word to say about him. No. Like nobody had a bad word, that he was a pleasure to work with. He had that suit on in some very, very hot circumstances filming. And I think this was filmed in Georgia. The TV series was definitely filmed in Orlando at the studios that we were operating at the time. And it couldn't have been easy, but one good thing about Swamp Thing is it was the first film from Bat Films, which was Benjamin Melnecker and Michael Uslan. And, this was in 82, and 7 years later they hit gold with Batman. And it was just kind of amazing that Swamp Thing beat Batman to the punch in terms of being a theatrical property. You had mentioned the return of Swamp Thing. Yeah. And I do have a DVD of that from the first film. Only Louis Jourdan and Dick Durock return. The femme fatale in this one is Heather Locklear.
Yeah.
Okay. After her stint on TJ Hooker and before Melrose Place. And this one is played much more for laughs.
That's what I heard.
More for laughs. So if you are going to watch this one, I might suggest going to the Riff Tracks version. And yes, this is on home video. You can get this from the Riff Tracks website and from the Kickstarter. I think you can still get it from there.
I am a fan of Riff Tracks and MS23K, as you can tell from my Gizmoplex cup. So yes, that sounds like a plan to me.
So, and also I think it's nice to talk about Swamp Thing because they are planning on a Swamp Thing film with James Gunn's new DC Studios at some point.
And I really hope they can do it justice, because there's so much great lore and there's so much creativity that goes into it.
It's such a lyrical story. I know that sounds lofty using a term like that, but it really is. I know, especially given what Alan Moore injected into the mythos. And neither of these films, this one even more so than the first one, it's not the Swamp Thing that you want to see, but it's something. And especially for the 80s where there was nothing happening, it was nice to have that. So
to see, I mean, what was it like, because this came out in 82, so I'm presuming that you may have been aware of it. You would have been, what, 14?
Oh, yeah. I did see it in the movie theaters. It was one of those things where I had to con people to go with it with me. Because my best friend Stu is not big on horror films,
Yeah.
so I had it like I forget what film it was, but I said, look, if you want to see that, I'll go see that with you. And I think it was My Bodyguard or something. No, it was one of those stupid teen movies.
Officer and Gentleman.
And I said, I'll see that, but let's see Swamp Thing this week. Return of the Swamp Thing came and went so quickly in the theaters that I can't imagine it lasted more than a week. I think in the New York market, it only played 2 theaters. So that was almost like a direct to video. But Swamp Thing was like a legit, the 82 film was a legit theatrical release. And
and also I think the fact that it was directed by Wes Craven gave it a little bit more oomph, I think.
Yeah, I think so, but I think only in the horror genre. I think, when he did hit the Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. I think that's really when he solidified his position as a mainstream director. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I absolutely loved. I love the comic. I even love the New 52. Like everything they've done since New 52, they did some really wonderful things with the Swamp Thing mythos that continues to today.
Yeah.
But I was impressed with the TV series that came out. It was the first series released for the DC Infinite.
You should watch that again. Oh, the DC. Okay.
Yeah, the DC, the new one.
I was going to say, somebody who fairly in the last few years watched all of the USA Network.
No. It was very popular at the time, but right now, if you were watching it again, absolutely not. I have attempted to rewatch episodes, and I'm like, what?
Oh boy! Okay,
it's
that's all I'll say is oh boy. All right, well, we're moving from Swamp Thing and DC Comics to an independent and something quintessentially independent. So we move on to 1994 and The Crow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So The Crow, this is one of those things that I think, because I had started reading comics, in 1990, really 89, 90, I was aware of The Crow, as a comic book. James O'Barr, his property was actually, it was pretty popular, indie wise. And it was something that I had actually heard of. I had seen a couple issues. Never could buy anything because it flew off the shelves or was really expensive to buy. Yeah. But I was super excited for it when I heard that they were turning into a film. And unfortunately, it had a lot of other publicity around the release of this film that overshadowed the story. And that was more what happened to Brandon Lee. During the filming of it. So that I think, it helped, I think, promote the film. Mm-hmm. It's an unfortunate thing, but it did raise the profile of something that could have been a relatively, middle of the road performer otherwise, because a lot of people had heard about The Crow as a property. Mm-hmm. But this kind of, that really sad, tragic news of his death while filming, I think pushed it up and allowed more people to be aware of it and to see it and give it the popularity, give it the visibility that it needed.
Yeah. So it's based on James O'Barr's work. It's based in literally in tragedy. It was his way of working through the death of his girlfriend. And that mentality follows it in every incarnation that they've had since then. I tried watching this in preparation for this episode. I tried watching this again. It has a very distinctive, chaotic editing style. As we were talking about before we started, that most likely was because they had a very limited amount of Brandon Lee footage, and that mechanism may have been a way to craft something close to a full narrative. I don't think it's held up well. It feels very 1994. And with that, the film's dark, and I don't mean that in terms of the subject matter. Of course, that's in the subject matter, but literally, it's dark. It's almost every scene is at night, and there's certain scenes where it's very hard to tell what's going on.
Yeah.
You have to listen very carefully to get a sense of where they are and who these people are, because the lighting doesn't help.
No.
One thing I will say, though, that, one thing on points in terms of 1994, a stunning soundtrack, a fantastic soundtrack. Yeah.
This soundtrack was my favorite album for several years. Like, just the soundtrack of this was so, every track, almost every track was just a massive, perfect, piece in this film. But it's definitely something that I think probably held up a lot better than the film.
And let me just briefly go through some of the artists that are on the soundtrack: The Cure, Stone Temple Pilots, Nine Inch Nails, Rage Against the Machine, Violent Femmes, Rollins Band, Helmet, Pantera, the Jesus and Mary Chain, and then beautifully tying it together somehow, a beautiful track by Jane Siberry, Canadian singer-songwriter.
Can't cry out loud.
Really good sound. Yeah.
And the soundtrack is so well produced. Like, every track leads into the it's just, I don't know. It's one of those perfect soundtrack albums that, again, I think outshines the film
in some capacity. Yeah, but I also think that, again, I was only able to get through about half an hour of the film, and they use the soundtrack to bridge scenes, and it's very effective.
Oh yeah.
So The Crow in and of itself was a franchise. There was in 1996 a sequel. I'm not sure if you have the photo ready for that, and that's City of Angels.
Yep.
And I saw this movie. I saw it in the movie theaters. If you put a gun to my head and told me to recite the plot, I'd be in real trouble. If you put a gun to your head and say, I'm going to blow your brains out unless you can recite the plot to this Crow movie, I don't remember a thing about this movie.
Honestly, the only thing I do remember about this movie is that it is very similar to the first one in the plot, the way that it's laid out. I think is essentially, in this one, it's the young street urchin, the girl that he befriends in the first movie. She gets kidnapped in this one, and I think that that's kind of the motivation for him to go on a killing spree against the drug lords who are running the city. It doesn't make any sense. Iggy Pop's in it.
Yeah. And this was one I was actually really looking forward to, because the person who directed this was Tim Pope, who is a fantastic music video director. And this was also a very early script from David S. Goyer, who is integral to the history of comic books and film. He has mentioned that they whittled his script down to almost nothing that he found recognizable. And, this good, Iggy Pop's in it. Thomas Jane is in it.
Thomas Jane, yeah.
You should like it just on that basis. And I tell you, I don't remember a damn thing about this film.
It's unfortunate too, because it did have the elements of something that could have been a good follow-up to the first movie. But I think it has the problem that Eric Mabius isn't Brandon Lee. And I think, having a new person, like clearly a new person stepping into that role, obviously you couldn't have Brandon Lee again. But I think that was probably part of the lack of appeal afterwards. Like, it didn't stick around. It didn't become a cult hit as much as the first one. And then that, of course, snowballed because it's a different actor in every subsequent movie. And it just doesn't It doesn't hold up, which is too bad. And so there were 2 sequels to this that were more or less straight to video. I do have a couple images here: the Crow Salvation, and then the Crow Wicked Prayer with Edward Furlong as the Crow.
And that's Edward Furlong at peak like addiction.
Yeah.
It's really. I did watch this one a few years ago, and it's.
Yeah, it's
And but at the same token, neither of these two had very big budgets.
No,
they did what they could.
Yeah, and that's I think that's the biggest lesson here is that people were kind of hoping that it would be a long running franchise and could just print money.
And I think it does have the capacity. I think it's kind of tailor made for episodic television.
Yeah, and it did.
In the way that Batman is, you just put this character in a problematic crime-ridden city, and stories kind of write themselves.
Absolutely.
So maybe at some point that they'll get the balance right with it. Because the potential's there.
The potential's there.
Certainly there.
And it did last. It was a TV series for a year, 98 to 99, I think it was, with Mark Dacascos as the Crow. But they did remake it very recently. This came out last year. I saw it. No, I didn't enjoy it. And, and I'm sure that there are people who liked it. It did have much better editing, I should say, than the first one. It was a lot more, the visuals were much more updated. It was interesting, but I didn't really care about the characters, unfortunately. So it was just so dark and dreary, but nobody really was redeemable in it, unfortunately. And which is really sad to say, because again, the subject matter is, he's paying for other sins so that he can, redeem himself, but also take revenge. So it's sort of like, I'm taking revenge, which is in itself is an act of sin or evil, but I'm doing it because my love has brought me back essentially to do this and to redeem myself by revenging her, my innocent girlfriend's death. But it just didn't work.
And in this one, this was Bill Skarsgård.
It was,
who was the Crow in this.
Yeah, and again, he wasn't bad. It just didn't really work, unfortunately. So, and I think it's just the formula is difficult to pull off. And I think if they can find somebody who's a good director, a good script.
Yeah, I don't like this guy as a director. I have not liked any of the films that he's made, Rupert Sanders. Sorry. Yeah. Maybe someday he'll knock one out of the park, but there's something kind of hackish.
He's still learning. He's still learning. He'll find that formula. He'll find it. It'll work for him someday, but this unfortunately was not it.
Snow White and the Hunts. Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're continuing our journey, and you cannot talk about comic books in the 90s without talking about Image Comics. And in 1997, we had our first film based on an Image comic, and that was Spawn,
which I don't have the images for.
Well, that's a shame, but I do have my home video copy. And look how old this is, Steve. Look, it's a snap case.
Oh, God, those New Line snap cases.
It's a snap case.
Man, I remember
and on top of it, the disc. Do you remember when you had, like, it was widescreen on one side and full screen on the other? Yeah, baby.
Oof.
Okay.
When they gave you the choice.
Okay,
man, Spawn was one of those massive hit comics right out of the gate. I mean, that thing sold millions of copies. I think it was issue number 2 was impossible to find for a long time because everybody overordered the first one but didn't order the second one.
and then 8 and then 11 for different reasons were hard to find. Yeah,
but
even though the print run was like into the millions, they were still tough to find those.
Yeah,
and now it's funny because there's a comic book channel I follow, Mint Hunter Comics, and I've been to James's shop a couple times at this point, And one of his videos details like the first 50 issues are so easy to find now.
Mm-hmm.
After that, though, oh baby, anything after 50 until McFarlane returns to the book, then some of those issues are fairly easy, like the 250s or so, and then they get hard again, just because the print runs are not big.
No.
After the point, but the print runs when the thing started were astronomical.
Which, I mean, this is one of the longest. This is the longest running Image comic. I mean, I guess you could say like Savage Dragon.
Savage Dragon, they're kind of tied, you know.
Yeah, and
they
Savage Dragon, of course,
they both had breaks, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
multiple volumes for Savage Dragon, but I think the first like Spawn is still going on the original volume and has had so many spin-off series since then. I mean,
the Savage Dragon had the original
like
miniseries, and then after that it was
the continuous one.
Consistent, you know, it was consistent numbering.
And there were some spin-offs from that too, kind of early on, but yeah, I mean, Spawn is just one of those really interesting comic series. I have no idea what's going on now. I know there's many different Spawns that are part of that universe, and it's even crossed over with the Massive Verse with Radiant Black and Radiant Red and all that. But yeah, it's definitely a very horror-based concept. You have a main character who is killed, but comes back from the dead with the powers of hell, essentially. He's got his semi-conscious cape and just general hellfire and all sorts of stuff that he can do. And of course, there are very gross demons. The Violator himself is one of the most famous of them, with sort of like the clown human version that barely looks human, and then of course the really weird creature version. Just sadistic, horrible, lots of blood, lots of tearing of flesh kind of stuff. But it's got the staying power there. The film does, in a way, is able to present a lot of this imagery really well.
Yeah.
I mean, the effects were pretty cool for the time.
For the time, I think people looking at this today, like, for me, it's like, I mean, I grew up with You Will Believe a Man Can Fly. I'm impressed by any special effect. I'm okay. But I think if you do watch it, you do realize CGI has gone a long way, but they were trying to do some things more. It's not a great film. Yeah. One thing I think for me, where Martin Sheen is the big bad, he just comes across as such a nice guy organically that I really have a hard time buying that. So that might be a me thing. Michael J. White was Spawn. He does a fine job.
He does a good job in everything.
So 70% of the film you can't see his face.
Yeah.
I think with the soundtrack they did an interesting thing, because for each of the tracks they combine a metal or hard alternative act with an electronic act.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the best known song from the track is the one by Filter and the Crystal Method, The Trip Like I Do. And it's like 12 tracks like that with combinations like that. So they didn't try to just be a Crow, the soundtrack. They did, there was a kind of, novelty to it. And it kind of works on some tracks. Others feel very forced, but they did try.
Well, and it's also notable because it's a black superhero. Again, in a costume the whole time. You don't really see his face, but also John Leguizamo as the Violator is freaking brilliant.
He does a good job.
Just a perfect encapsulation of the comic character, and the makeup and everything made him look exactly how you would expect somebody walking off the page, which I thought was pretty cool. And I think that was the other thing that this movie had going for, is that it had a lot of color to it, like just bright colors. It didn't spend all of its time like shadows,
any
red,
shade
green.
of red you want, you'll get it in this film.
Just a lot of
and
fun.
also,
And
what, like I said at the beginning, there are the films that have a foot in superhero and a foot in horror. I think, especially with the comic book, I think sometimes people forget, it is a horror comic.
Yeah.
Because of some of the storylines that You feel kind of disconnected from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. Spawn.
Spawn's pretty
Someday
cool.
they'll make another one.
Someday. I mean, they had the TV series, the cartoons.
Mhm.
The cartoon lasted for a few seasons. It was
Yeah.
pretty popular. Again, premium
Yeah,
TV.
the only thing with that was I have a very skewed vision of how that series went because I was in my 20s. I was doing things people in their 20s did and wasn't watching a lot of TV.
Right.
And I relied on the later DVDs, which, chopped the episodes up into, like a full 2.5 hour movie, essentially. So
Yeah.
someday I would like to watch it as episodic television because I didn't have that experience. So our journey takes us from 1997 to the following year, 1998. And I think the importance of this film cannot be stressed enough. And that is Blade.
Blade.
I got an HD version of Blade.
And I do have
This
some.
is a very, this is a very important film. Marvel, in terms of cinematic success, was a bust. You had Howard the Duck in 1986. You had the Punisher film at the end of the 80s, which was almost unrecognizable from the Punisher. You had the Captain America, which may as well have been a direct-to-video. Then you had the Fantastic Four from Corman, which was never even released.
No.
So they didn't have a great track record, but something with Blade connected, and you don't have a Marvel Cinematic Universe without Blade. You just
100%.
don't. In terms of how the film was marketed, in terms of how the film was edited, in terms of how the film, was just basically conceived as part of a bigger story, though, the interconnectivity was, still kind of siloed. But I think Blade, in terms of comic book movies, is one of the most important ones out there.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Wesley Snipes, to this day, he's still asked to return as his character. And in fact, Deadpool versus Wolverine, he did. He got to return and do Blade again on the big screen for the fourth time. And this was one that actually had, a trilogy that did well. Obviously you could say diminishing returns.
Each film did better.
Yeah, each film did better.
Yep.
You could say diminishing returns in the quality of the film, but really only by the third one. The first one was great. The second one was even better.
I think people really, again, because of, this was very important for Guillermo del Toro's career.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
With Blade 2, I think people did get some disappointment in Blade Trinity, and the stories about how Blade Trinity was made, that should be a movie in and of itself.
Somebody better make a documentary. That's all I have to say.
I don't want a documentary. I want a docu-series on that. I want, I want. What was the movie about the making of The Godfather? The television series.
Oh, yeah. Oh, shoot. It was on Showtime. What was the name of it?
Yeah. I can't think of the name of it. That's what I want about Blade 3.
Yeah. Nacelle, if you're listening, do a whole series of the Icon series for Blade. But if you could do anything on that, I would be so
And I think it was interesting because Blade at that point was not a very well-known character.
No.
Even among comic people, was kind of a footnote at that point. And maybe that's why it worked, because people didn't have a lot of preconceptions.
It could be
of what a character,
for sure.
And,
and of course he's less superhero-y. I mean, he doesn't wear a cape. I mean, his black trench coat is pretty flowy at times, but he's cool in all the right cool spots, right? He's got the shades, he's got the deep voice, he's got the fangs, he's got the samurai sword. I mean, this guy is just cool. And Wesley Snipes, he brings with it that just sense of this is just a cool action actor. This guy can really embody this type of character and make you believe, he's a badass. He's it's a shame that his career and his personal life on top of that probably didn't go in the direction he was hoping for. But there was no question at this time that he was a riveting
theatrical presence. You know,
100%.
he had star quality at this point. And it's nice that there's been some rebound and that he's had fun playing this character, which, you know, by the time albeit Trinity, for some whatever reason, whatever demons in his head, he saw as a burden more than a benefit. And you know, even more than the return in Deadpool and Wolverine, I thought his cameos in the vampire series, the TV.
What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's just I was so happy to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's nice that, you know, he's kind of come around and embraced it again. But we did get whatever metrics you use, 3 very good films. Blade Trinity also has, to recommend it, Dominic Purcell is sexy as fuck in that film.
As the progenitor vampire, you know, he walks in the room and you're like, damn. But you know, when you've heard what is the term, like for the deep V, the girdle of Venus, or whatever it is, like that perfect deep V.
Yeah.
If you're into that kind of thing.
It would have been nice if this led to a Night Stalkers franchise.
Yeah.
That certainly seemed to be the setup, maybe more out of necessity than what would have happened because of the difficulties with the director and writer David S. Goyer. There's that name again. Dealing with Snipes, but we did get a trilogy out of it. Yeah. There also was a follow-up TV series. You don't seem to like it. I kind of liked it. I kind of liked it.
It feels cheap to me, but I understand why. It wasn't like it was already too expensive to produce. Like it only made it 13 episodes, and it was very expensive for the channel that was putting it out. Spike TV didn't have the money for something like this, and yet they commissioned it and produced it. And you know, I think if it was on a different channel, like if it had been picked up by an HBO or Cinemax or something like that. Yeah,
but I think it was kind of made for Spike. You know?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm
not even saying like if it ended up somewhere. It was kind of made for Spike. And in terms of names, you know, we also had Jeff Johns as part of the running crew for that. Okay, so we're moving on to 2 films which I don't think are very good, but I think are there's still stuff to discuss. We move on to 1997, and this is not a very familiar name, I think, for most, even diehard comic book fans. But there was a film based on the 1992 Dark Horse series Virus, and it took its name, and it was called Virus in 1997. And if you have a picture there,
I do.
There is an actress who's still a very hot actress. Yes, it's Jamie Lee Curtis, and this is my widescreen. Remember, we had to make sure it was widescreen before we bought it. Of Virus. This concerns and you know, there's a lot of shared DNA with films like Alien and Species,
Superman 3.
Yeah. Thanks. No, I can't shake that image. And with this one, it deals with a Russian research vehicle that is contacting the Mir space station. I haven't thought of the name the Mir space station in years. And there is a technovirus that comes through the Mir space station and then goes down into this vessel. There is a tugboat that had to jettison its uninsured cargo because of a storm that they're in, a typhoon, that is captained by a character played by Donald Sutherland. And I can't bash Donald Sutherland more in this film. Lazy. He's lazy in this. Jamie Lee Curtis is essentially the first mate. They aren't as regimented because it's a tugboat crew. And Billy Baldwin over there in the picture there is another one of the seamen. And Jamie Lee Curtis has said herself she thinks it's the worst film she's ever been in. She's fine in it. I think she's one of the few actors out there that I think, even if what they're in is shit, they still deliver it as if they're like, as if it's like Shakespeare or Ibsen. You're still getting bang for your buck from this actor. The special effects are actually pretty good. I watched this today in preparation. I have not seen this since like 2000, 2001 or so. But Donald Sutherland is supposed to be a British tugboat captain, but you won't be able to put your hand on Bible to that if you actually hear him in the film, because he's Irish and then he's British, then he's Irish again, then it's Boston, and then it's like his native Canuck, and then back to Brit. It's lazy. It's lazy.
Wow.
There's also an actor who plays Squeaks, I think is the guy's name, Squeaker, and you would swear it's Lin Miranda. You know, you would swear it's him. It's a different actor who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. And what should be, you know, it's definitely going for that alien trapped on a vessel vibe with, you know, a very formidable opponent. I can't believe they had an action figure line based on this film. Like, I can't imagine, like, hey, Mom, can you get me Virus toys for Christmas? I can't believe that.
I want to play with Goliath. I want to play with Goliath. I want the Jamie Lee Curtis action figure.
But I think I do have to watch the special features on this, because there is Ghost in the Machine, an original documentary, and a feature commentary with the director John Bruno, who is mostly known as a VFX guy, and actually was one of the people that won an Academy Award for The Abyss. Deleted scenes.
What did they cut out?
I'm gonna have to watch this, but it's not good. It's not good.
It has literally been, it's been 25 years since I've watched it. And the only thing I remember about it is Jamie Lee Curtis, because she's the only good thing in it. And I absolutely agree. Like, she's one of those actors.
The other woman in it, Joanna Pakula as the Russian survivor, she's good. I thought she was good in this too. But Billy Baldwin could have been any matinee idol actor, and Donald Sutherland is like, he's so bad. It's up there with there are certain performances in comic book films that are just so awful they have to be, you know, Mia Farrow in Supergirl. I mean, I don't know what she was doing in that. And this is on that level. He's a good actor, and that's why I feel like it's lazy. Because I think there's great Donald Sutherland performances, whether it's Don't Look Back or Invasion of the Body Snatchers. There's plenty out there. Even Animal House, you know, his scenes are great in that.
Hunger Games.
Not this. This is woo, La Bamba.
Yeah.
All right. So Virus was essentially a film pitch that was turned into a comic book and then reverse engineered to be back into a film script. From Hell, which is the next stop in our travels here, was very different. This is based on the graphic novel by Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell. It has a very distinctive visual style, and top-notch cast with Johnny Depp and who remembers Heather Graham.
I remember Heather Graham.
Yeah. There was a time where she was like in every other film. There was like a 2-year period where it's like crazy. And this is a huge disappointment. But it's understandable. This was directed by the Hughes brothers, who are, you know, known for much more urban films. You know, they're African American directors. So I thought the choice of directors, it was inspired. The thing is, if you base it on the comic book, which is about Jack the Ripper, but is more about the social class structure and the societal norms of the very end of the Victorian period, the thing is, they were damned if they did, damned if they don't, because if you wanted to make something that was akin to that work, you know who Jack the Ripper is in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it's apparent in the narrative. And when you do have that, it's a black and white work. It's like a phone book when it's collected. And I think maybe in the atmosphere today that you could get away with a TV series based on this, especially after watching the first season of The Alienist.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that would have been a very good team for this. But as a whodunit, it really isn't that. It's like, yeah, I know who did it. There's more, and what's powerful about that story about who Jack the Ripper was the societal connections he had as displayed in the book. And this is just a disappointment all around. But I really do think it was a situation where they could not make the graphic novel. It shares the title from the graphic novel and the core story that it's around the investigation for the Jack the Ripper murders, and that's it.
Yeah, this movie, I had seen it and I hadn't read the graphic novel before. I knew that it was based on a graphic novel, which, I think most people who came to see this movie didn't really care what it was based on. I mean, they came for Johnny Depp, and he's competent in it. Like, everybody's pretty good at what they're doing, but again, the story is a little bit more.
If you just called it Jack the Ripper, I wouldn't have problems with it. But for me, like, From Hell was one of those works, along with The Golden Age by James Robinson and Paul Smith, and Starman by James Robinson, and Supreme by Alan Moore, that got me back into reading comics regularly, along with some more conventional fare like Grant Morrison's JLA at the at the end of the 90s. And I was bound to be disappointed because you just couldn't make it at that time. I think you could make a television series with how things are structured now that would be much more akin to the book.
I agree with that. And I think that would probably maybe be a good version, or a good way of returning to this, to this story, and being able to do it justice, rather than putting it up on the big screen again. Because, again, it's not a bad movie. Everything about it is competent.
It's not a hack film.
No.
There are even better Jack the Ripper films out there. But when you think, if you've ever experienced the source material, it's a shame. It's just a shame.
It's harder. It's harder, I guess.
You could not release a conventional film at the end of the 90s or the early 2000s where you knew who Jack the Ripper was 5 minutes in. You just couldn't do it. Yeah.
So, cool.
Okay. So we move on to the next entry in the list. From Hell was 2001. Blade 2, which we had mentioned, was 2002. And then in 2004, we had a comic book. It's based on a comic book that is based on film properties. So it's another full circle situation. And what I'm talking about in 2004 is the first Alien versus Predator film.
Yeah. Which I don't have the images for that one, but that's fine.
Okay. So this was one that was like, it barely, as far as I'm concerned, it barely qualified.
It's definitely,
it's one of the entries here with an asterisk,
movie to comic book to then movie based on.
But it wouldn't exist without comic books. That was how the characters initially met.
Yep.
How the franchises merged was from the Dark Horse. It was initially wasn't it Dark Horse Presents? Wasn't it like short stories in that?
Yeah, there were, because there was a lot in Dark Horse Presents, and I forget what, there was one big one.
The Mask came out of Dark Horse Presents. Mystery Men came out of Dark Horse Presents. Time Cop, I think, maybe. Was Time Cop? Yeah, so a lot of films came out of have relation to Dark Horse Presents, but how they had the Predators versus the Xenomorphs, that all began in the comics. And there also was a sequel to this. depending who you ask what it's titled, Aliens versus Predator Requiem or AVPR in 2007.
Yeah.
So did want to mention that because it qualifies with an asterisk.
Yeah. And you know, and the premise of the first one is pretty cool. You know, they find an ancient pyramid in Antarctica, and of course, it was part of Predator's, training facility where they would breed aliens to then release whatever on prehistoric Earth. But it contributed a lot to what became Alien and Predator lore.
Even though it's not considered canon.
Nope.
But it's
lot
also
of
interesting if you do see the Predator, the previews for the upcoming Predator movie.
Yes.
It's very clear that in that trailer that the Weyland-Yutani Corporation is a presence.
Oh yeah.
So
well, I mean, Elle Fanning, I think she's a Weyland-Yutani synth. So yeah, I think this is it's cool to mention. Even though it kind of like is asterisks, like you said, but yeah, it contributed a lot to those movies. So if you're a big Alien or Predator fan, thank the comics, thank Dark Horse for making.
So 2004, though, that wasn't the only comic book film. We had Blade Trinity, which we just talked about, and then we have the first film in a franchise which is very dear to Steve's heart. So I'll let him take it away with Hellboy.
So Hellboy, of course, very near and dear to my heart. Love the series, love BPRD, love the whole concept. And I started out not being a fan of Hellboy comics back when it came out, and I'm kicking myself for not becoming a super fan at that time. But I wasn't reading horror comics when I was but a wee teeny bopper in the early 90s. So, Mike Mignola's creation here, Hellboy, was picked up, I guess something that Guillermo del Toro had been really wanting to do. And of course, he wanted to have Ron Perlman from the get-go, wanted Ron Perlman as Hellboy. And he got his wish, finally. Yet they had to shop it around so many times because nobody wanted to take it up for the name alone. They said, you can't market that. Not in the U.S. It has HE double hockey sticks. That's bad. Bad word. No, bad. But it actually, somebody took a chance on it, and thank God they did, because it is a wonderful film. It does adapt the comics. Guillermo del Toro actually did write this one, and loosely based it on Seed of Destruction, which was one of the first. Who did what?
He did the first one with Peter Briggs, and then the Golden Army by himself in terms of script writing.
Well, Golden Army, he actually worked with Mike Mignola on. Mike Mignola and Christopher
Mike
Golden.
Mignola's not credited.
Yeah, they did help with the.
It says script. Story by Guillermo del Toro and Mike Mignola, screenplay by Guillermo del Toro. Okay,
yeah. And Christopher Golden too.
I bow to your expertise.
And Christopher Golden too on the second one, but the first one was really Guillermo del Toro. I can't say his name the entire time, so like Del Toro, really wanted to do this story, and so he presented a quick origin for Hellboy that is the perfect quintessential origin story, and then of course brought in the Nazis, which are always fun, and Rasputin, and really brought home the Agdru Jihad, which big part of Hellboy lore, but not too obscure or crazy for most moviegoers to understand. Giant Cthulhu-like or, elder god-like creatures in the outer world. Hellboy's there to either, usher them in or to stop them. And it sets up the really cool BPRD as a fun, interesting government agency. There's a lot of humor there, but there's also a lot of great horror elements. I mean, they bring back to life a rotting corpse, and Hellboy carries him on his back. You've got these hounds of hell. You've got, of course, Rasputin bringing elder gods down. It's got a lot of scary elements and a lot of great horror elements here.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody is scared of crazy Nazis, especially almost immortal TikTok, clockwork ones. Did a really great job there. So, I
Yeah.
mean, just beautifully done.
So this is my copy
Mm-hmm.
this is the director's cut. It's 3 discs with a booklet.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to see what the Blu-ray and 4K versions of this are like, because there's a lot of material in this version.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the reason why there hasn't been an upgrade is I haven't really investigated. So.
Well, and I think Del Toro's look for this was a very interesting way of translating Mike Mignola's art.
Yeah.
And I think to the detriment of later films, I think everybody wants just to continue to see Del Toro do Hellboy.
Mm-hmm.
And so Hellboy 1 and 2, Golden Army, was a unique story, obviously, done with the help
that
of
one
Mignola.
I do have on Blu-ray.
Yeah. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's got some really cool
and
moments.
I think it's also very important to note that both Hellboy and Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, there's no CGI sets. Those are all standing physical sets.
Yep.
Which is a rarity these days.
And the costuming,
if you
the
watch
character,
it through that lens, you'll be impressed.
Yeah, and the creature design, and especially I think in the second one, the one that stands out the most is, of course, Hellboy's death, the creature of death, the angel of death that they capture. At one scene, of course, also played by Doug Jones, who plays pretty much every kind of strangely shaped creature, including Abe Sapien. So after Hellboy 1 and Hellboy 2, which came out, I think, in 2008.
Yeah. Can we just stay on Hellboy 2 for a second?
Yeah.
I didn't dislike it, but it felt unnecessary.
Yeah. I mean, it's what can you do after you've already...
It felt like they were committed to a sequel. Let's make a sequel, and they're just what it felt. And especially this is really funny coming from Del Toro.
Right.
It felt like a job. It felt like they were doing a job. And when you see the craft that went into it with the costumes and the thing, clearly that wasn't their intent, but there is that feel to it of like, it feels like more of a sequel than a necessary Hellboy story. Like this was a story that was necessary to tell.
And I think probably, and if you've read a lot of the Hellboy comics and the BBRD comics, then you would, I think most people would agree there, because it doesn't really fit in with the universe that Mignola created around this character and these characters. There's an attempt. There's the Fae do play a part in Hellboy. Some of the actions and some of the creatures are very Hellboyish, but the whole concept itself just isn't very much from that universe, which is unfortunate, because again, it is a gorgeous movie, and it's still Del Toro, and it's still Ron Perlman, and still like the original cast, coming back for the sequel. So they did the first 2. There wasn't a third one for a very long time. There were 2 animated films, and I, just kind of put them up here. They were
very importantly with the same cast.
Same cast, as voices, which was great. So Blood and Iron and Sword of Storms, and they were both, both of these films were on Cartoon Network and then went straight to video essentially right afterwards. So they did not get a theatrical release. And so for years, there really wasn't anything until 2019. And it took that long because Del Toro kind of didn't really want to continue with it. And it just took a long time to get people shopping around for the right script. And then, of course, you had to find the right actor to play Hellboy, because people didn't want to go with Ron Perlman because he was a little older. And
well, also Perlman said like he just couldn't do a makeup job like that anymore.
Oh yeah, it's so intense. It's so much work.
I remember interviews with that. Was like, if you wanted him to do it, you had to pay him a lot of money.
Yeah,
because he's he's had three very notable roles that were makeup heavy, and
Yeah.
he was tired of it, and I completely understand that.
100%. And also pay for the rehab bills afterwards from all like the physical work. It's
Yeah.
But they finally found David Harbour. So they put David Harbour in this, and he looks freaking amazing in the suit, and the makeup and everything looks great. The one thing I have to say about the 2019 Hellboy movie, it looks great. And this is the other thing that's also really kind of frustrating for me too, as somebody who reads a lot of Hellboy. It was probably one of the most story accurate versions of this character they could do. They had characters that were deep in Hellboy lore, that were a huge part of the Hellboy long form storytelling. Nimue, the Blood Queen, or the Queen of Blood, Alice, the Gruagach, the Arthurian legacy, all of this stuff, crazy deep lore. Only makes sense if you've been reading it for 20 years. They throw it in this movie, and I think most people just were like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on? What is happening here? One of the coolest things, and again, it's been making the rounds. If it's shown up on your FYP, your For Your page on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram, I would not be surprised. And it is the hell creatures coming out and destroying London. Beautiful sequence. Again, people who were watching this movie were like scratching their heads trying to figure out what was happening, what was going on.
Yeah.
And what do you mean he's a descendant of King Arthur? What is that, Excalibur? How does he have Excalibur? What's going on?
I did not see this in the film because, again, it was not a substantial box office hit, and its tenure in the theaters was not very long. I first saw this on a plane.
Oh, ooh.
What a weird movie to watch on a plane.
Very weird. Like the whole Wild Hunt thing with the giant.
And this was, we're talking 2019, and they still had films presented by the airplane company, by the airline, So it was one of those, and I just came off and it's like, it's not the worst film I've ever seen, but it was loaded. I think that's a good way of putting it. It's overloaded. And it's just a weird film to watch on a plane.
Absolutely.
Weird. Yeah.
And if you were like the majority of audiences were expecting the same kind of group of characters that you had seen in the Del Toro Hellboy movies, you would be horribly disappointed. Because really the only one that carries over is Hellboy himself. Everybody else is unique to this film, all really important for Hellboy comics lore. But again, nobody understood what was going on in this movie to its detriment. Like I enjoyed myself because I knew what I was watching. But again, I understand that it's too much. So of course they followed it up, and again, this didn't get a big release, but they focused it down on the latest film, starring Jack Kesey as Hellboy, and made it just, the Effie Kolb Crooked Man storyline.
Yeah, and this one we talked about, there was no theatrical release in the States.
No, not at all. It made very little money overseas, because again, I think it's too small, but it's also very American of a story. It's too small, I think, for people who were looking for a Hellboy movie. So, I enjoyed it a lot because it was very close with a few major changes to the story of the Crooked Man and Effie Kolb. But Hellboy, I'm hoping someday it comes back and somebody can make a great movie. But
so as we said, the first Hellboy was in 2004. The following year, we finally get another DC property, and that's in the form of Constantine with Keanu Reeves.
Yep, Constantine, and I do have an image here. And I also
this image of him like strutting.
Yeah. Yep. I really enjoyed this movie. I had not
Mm-hmm.
read any Hellblazer comics before I saw this movie. So I was like, wow, this is really
Interesting.
cool. I want to go and read some
That's
Hellblazer.
weird because you're such a Vertigo guy.
Well, I had seen, this is 2005 that it
Yeah.
came out, and I had not read any comics, like any, like big two
Yeah, but
published comics for a while.
it was when you were reading Sandman, it was
Yes,
around.
he was
Yeah.
in Sandman, but he wasn't a major character in Sandman. He showed up a couple times, and that was, in reference, but it was not really something I knew of him, but I didn't read him.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed this movie for what it was. I think
Yeah,
most people,
it's a very Malibu take on Constantine.
whoa, yeah, it really is.
Yeah, yeah.
In a way that Keanu Reeves,
it
is pure Keanu Reeves,
and it's interesting because it's actually fairly faithful to the comic, even more so than the TV series with Matt Ryan. It's actually there's elements that are very, very faithful, particularly to the Dangerous Habits storyline.
But yeah,
so it's a strange little film that is enjoyable, and it looks like there are indications that we may get more Keanu as Constantine.
True. The one thing I do have to say
that
about
would be like an Elseworlds film that comes through DC Studios. Yeah.
And the one thing I do have to say about this particular film is that it has legs. It is a cult hit. It wasn't a huge blockbuster when it came out. It did really well, but it didn't do amazing numbers. But it has remained popular and has been rediscovered multiple times by younger fans. So it's pretty cool. But just for people watching, if you aren't familiar with the difference between Constantine and the John Constantine from the Hellblazer Vertigo series, this is Keanu Reeves. Here is John Constantine Hellblazer. Kind of a very different take on this character. Going from Malibu to the original, which is very Cockney London, blonde. Blonde is the big thing here. But
physically based on Sting.
Yes.
You have to keep that in mind. The character first appeared in 1984. And
as a former punk rocker,
they've maintained that look. Yeah. They've maintained that look, except for Keanu, like I said. And I think I don't even say it disparagingly. It's a very Malibu take on
and it is a fun movie.
Yeah, I think it has a great pace.
Oh yeah,
there's not a wasted scene in it.
Tilda Swinton.
Directed this? Who was the director for this? Francis Lawrence.
Yeah, Francis Lawrence.
I don't know what else they did.
Yeah. It also has Jamin Hanchu plays Papa Midnight, and you're like, oh wow, they threw this guy in too. But you do have Tilda Swinton as Gabriel, and is fantastic in this. This is one of her great characters, and Peter Stormare as Satan, as Lucifer, which is pretty cool.
Lucifer.
Yeah. So
okay. So Constantine was 2005. This next film I can't talk about because I actually have never seen it, which is weird.
Really?
Because I have the original graphic novel, and I've always appreciated Steve Niles as a personality, but I have never seen 2007's 30 Days of Night,
which is again kind of too bad. I'm not going to say oh my god, you haven't seen it.
I've just never gotten around to it.
I really enjoyed this. Again, this was one of my 31 days of horror. I believe last year. It's vampires, so of course vampires always do well. But it's a cool take on vampires, and I think just making them intelligent yet also feral and bestial, and extremely cruel.
But I assume not in the 28 Days Later way.
No, these vampires are, they're intelligent in a way that they are planners. They're hunters, and their prey is stuck in the small town formerly known as Barrow, Alaska. I can't pronounce the current name of it. It starts with a U. But it was formerly known as Barrow, Alaska, and they're famous for having almost a full month, 30 days of night every winter, and 30 days of daytime, 30 days of full 24-hour sun in the summer. But this, of course, the town is essentially more or less wiped out by these vampires, with the exception of a few surviving holdouts led by Josh Hartnett. And so they have to figure out a way to destroy the vampires and survive till sunlight. But it's a really good action movie. It's a good horror movie, and a great concept. How close it is to the comic, I couldn't tell you because I have not read the book. So you've read it. I haven't.
I've read the book and enjoyed it. Yeah,
and I haven't read it, but I've seen the movie. So just so you know, there was a sequel to this.
Yes, this was, and this was, I mean, you can just even like this graphic just screams of direct-to-video.
Oh yeah, 30 Days of Night, Dark Days, and so I have not seen it either, but I don't think they could really top the original. The original film in the theater.
But at some point I will watch it, and I think this has kind of put this more on the top of the stack.
Yeah.
Than
I recommend it. I think it's a good time. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the theatrical 30 Days of Night was in 2007. AVP Requiem, however the fuck you want to pronounce it, is 2007. Another movie that came out in 2007, I think this is the last franchise we're going to talk about in detail tonight, was Ghost Rider. With Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage as a Marvel horror superhero.
Yeah. It's one of those movies, and there's many of them, most notably Peggy Sue Got Married, where Nicolas Cage is acting in a completely different film from the other cast members. He adopts a Southern accent. You always like that Italian food. It's fun. I can tell you that it's fun.
This is a fun movie.
And it did well enough to warrant a sequel.
Yeah.
Which is whoa. Oh, this is rough. This was rough.
I cannot tell you what the sequel is about. I cannot remember.
This is as I said before about the Second Crow film. Same situation. I watched it. I own it. I can't tell you what happens in there and with any distinct. The main thing I remember is it's in Europe. That's the main thing I remember.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah.
It's in Europe. Yeah.
Oh, I feel
because
so
remember
bad
that's where
about
he's hiding out after because of the bounty hunters after him.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a movie that people worked hard on. They put their heart and soul in this movie. They put in their hours. And unfortunately, I apologize to all of them, I can't remember a goddamn thing about it.
And I think the problem with the Ghost Rider films is the villains are so dull.
Yeah.
And Ghost Rider does have some interesting villains in his comic series. Some are goofy, like the Eye guy. Some are goofy, but it just, the adversary element to it just doesn't work. But the first one is fun. I actually do think if you ever made a Ghost Rider film again, because this was a situation in the 1970s, 3 of Marvel's new characters were clearly based on real life people. Luke Cage is clearly Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Ghost Rider is clearly Evel Knievel, and Shang-Chi is clearly Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Give me Evel Knievel as Ghost Rider. Set it in the 70s, and just run with it, because there could be a really, really, really fun and I think memorable movie. I think you could do something with Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
The first one's fun. I mean, the first one's fun. Second one, it's like, I saw it.
I saw it. I couldn't tell you what it's about, but I saw it. That's, I feel the same way for that. And Ghost Rider is definitely cool because you can, very similar to Blade, you can make any kind of evil adversary as long as they're interesting.
And also he can interact with the Marvel universe in general. And I know we've had the the Robbie Reyes version, who, you know, started in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. For the MCU. I still think they could do more with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, maybe even doing a Spirits of Vengeance movie might be the way to go.
And it was a shame because, you know, apparently Nick Cage really did want to do Deadpool and Wolverine, but just the time frames just did not work.
That's too bad.
Yeah. So we just have a few more films that we're just going to like mention effectively in passing.
Yeah.
In 2014, there was I, Frankenstein, which is based on an online graphic novel retelling of Frankenstein. The main thing I remember about this is that's one of the funniest episodes of the Movie Bears podcast, because I don't think any of them really liked it. And there's just some very funny lines, so I would refer people to that. At some point, I'll see it.
Now I want to go back and listen to it again.
In 2016, there was a film, Abattoir, which was based on a Radical. If people remember, there was an imprint called Radical Comics, Radical Press, which was, when we talked about Malibu, I mean, it was just basically a front to do IP development for films. And this was one of the stories. It was a horror story. I've never seen it. The Hellboy reworking with David Harbour was in 2019, which we just talked about. Morbius. Which I know you saw.
Yep.
I own it. I still haven't watched it. And this has been out a couple of years.
No rush.
I really should watch it at some point, right?
No rush. I mean, so it was one of those movies that you were waiting for to come out for a long time. But then, of course, because of the pandemic and because of, you know, other delays, it finally came out. And I don't think the expectations, anybody had any idea what this was going to be. Yeah. It was an interesting take on the character, and I'll leave it at that.
So at some point I'll watch it. And then that brings us almost up to current day, the Crow reboot in 2024 that Steve talked about. Yeah. And in terms of stuff that's on the horizon, we do have a DC Studios film next year, which is already in production, which has been bannered as body horror, and that's the Batman villain Clayface.
Yeah.
His standalone movie. So,
and see, I
wouldn't do have at least one coming out that we can look forward to.
Yeah, and you know, normally I wouldn't think of, you know, a Batman movie, Batman related movie as a horror movie, but some of his villains, some of his main villains are all about like fear and horror, like Scarecrow, fear and horror.
Yeah.
Clayface, it usually played a little bit, you know, sometimes goofy, sometimes like really serious. Yeah. But honestly, body horror is,
and sometimes there's a character trying to reform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know,
it's not like that this time around.
No, this sounds like it could be really, cool.
Know, and Blade for the MCU is just caught in development hell. So someday we may see another Blade. But I'm certain that it's not the end of horror-based comic book films. Swamp Thing is eyed for Gods and Monsters arc in
somewhere in the next couple of years is that potential there. So I'm you know, on TV obviously there's a lot of options if you want to go back and look at horror adaptations. And like I had mentioned, sort of, you know, Creep Show is one of those weird ones that's come full circle and went back. Yeah, and it was when you think of TV, I mean, you have The Walking Dead from DC. You have Sandman and Dead Boy Detectives. There's a lot. So and Marvel Zombies, of course, just came out on Disney Plus. I did watch all 4 of those episodes, and it is
the wonderful Werewolf by Night standalone special.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also now in color, you know, that
good stuff. Yeah.
There's some good stuff. But yeah, for films, there's some good history there.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't think there's any of the films we talked about. I don't think are rise to the level of a great film for me. You know, I'm just like, no, I wouldn't say any of them are great films. But there are some solid, definitely great popcorn films.
Yeah.
in the mix there.
I would say that Hellboy is a great film, like the first one.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Hellboy is a great film. The closest one for me. No.
Clearly, Return of Swamp Thing.
No.
That's the
But,
best.
well, the riff tracks.
That I can get behind. I would assume.
I think honestly, maybe just because the visuals I find so interesting, and because it did lay groundwork. Of all these films, I probably would go with the first Blade for me.
Yeah. Blade was.
Yeah.
The first and the second Blade were so good. The third one was fun, and Ryan Reynolds with a beard and shirtless is, I approve. And of course Dominic Purcell. But yeah, and Parker Posey. Parker Posey was in that too. Like Parker Posey's in Blade Trinity.
But if you're looking for like some like Halloween fare, I think we've given you a lot here tonight.
Definitely plenty.
Well, this was fun. This is Bear Cave of Terror adjacent, and kind of something we created out of necessity.
Yeah.
So this was an interesting, enjoyable night. Thank you, Steve.
Well, thank you.
I feel like I'm playing in your sandbox a little bit, but you probably could use some of this footage for Bear Cave, and at least in terms of the shorts too.
Maybe. I mean, one of the things
I would like to see, I would have liked to see the shorts about calling like a very Malibu version of Constantine.
Your wish is my command. Just hold up. I might be putting that out this coming week. Bill calls Constantine the Malibu version of the character.
All right, so we're going to start wrapping up this episode of the Comic Book Bears, and when we wrap an episode up, we have two final destinations, the first of which is where we show off our geekettes, things we've gotten over the last fortnight that are geeky in some way, and it's a little bit of show and tell. Sometimes Steve has stuff, sometimes he doesn't. Steve, do you have stuff tonight?
I do. I actually have books this time.
Okay.
Specifically DC Compact. I have been really enjoying getting these. And I just got a set of 3 of some of the latest ones. So Wonder Woman, the first New 52 collection, Batman, Arkham Asylum, and of course one of my favorites. And again, I think I have 2 versions of this already, but the New Frontier. And people have complained about these being it's presented in a much smaller format, and so it's you can't support something like this.
It's kind of there in the title there, dudes.
It's compact. I fully 100% support this because these are no more than $10, so excellent price point. They're easy to carry around and are easy to gift and get somebody interested in reading different comics. There's so many different options that are out there for different properties, different characters, different books. And compacts, digest size, don't knock them. I mean, this is definitely something I recommend for people to pick up for people that you want to read comics.
I think DC has done, because the absolutes are, they're just out of most people's price ranges.
Yeah. They're huge too.
We have friends that, have a few bucks that get them. But I think DC, between the compact and also the DC library, which kind of has taken the spot of almost like a midpoint between Archives and Showcase Presents.
The DC Finest line.
DC Finest, sorry. DC Finest. I got my first copy of one, which was the Crypto volume, the Superboy and Crypto volume, and it's just really nice having everything in chronological order.
Yeah.
And, it's real nice. So I do think that DC's programs, their graphic novel programs, are pretty on the money. Speaking of DC, I've mentioned this almost on every episode over the summer, and it's still going. Me with the slowest collecting ever of a line of toys. Yes, I did get more Spin Master Superman. I got Epic Strike Superman.
Epically striking.
Yes, and I also got Epic Strike Mr. Terrific.
Epically striking too.
They joined previously purchased Epic Strike Hammer, or more fully Hammer of Boravia. So these are discounted at Target right now to $4.95.
Jeez.
If somebody finds the Guy Gardner Green Lantern Epic Strike, I ask you, please shuffle your ass to the register and I'll cover you for the $5 because I can't find them over here.
Oh, man.
And I'm just hoping that I have the Superman Kaiju, Slime Kaiju coming on Sunday. So I'll show that off in the next one. That's a pre-Prime Day deal at Amazon. But I'm still waiting for that set, the Luther's Lab set with the 7 action figures to come down to sell through price at Target. It's a Target exclusive. It's got to, because there's just tons of them still in stores. They got a discount at some point because right now it's still like $45 or something. So. And in terms of a non-Superman Spin Master get, as I had mentioned before, I hung out with principally my friend Glenn, but also some other members of the GCDC group and extended family on Saturday, where we went record shopping to a store up in Wayne, New Jersey, Sound Exchange. And I fully expected that my next Beatles box set was going to be the anthology box set that's coming out at the end of the year. But they had, for an excellent price, the box set from Bear Family from 2001, the Beatles with Tony Sheridan, Beatles Bop Hamburg days. The first time the Beatles were in a recording studio properly were for Polydor Records, where they backed fellow Liverpudlian Tony Sheridan, who was also on the Star Club circuit in Hamburg. This has every possible variation of the 8 tracks that they recorded, also including another one where they suspect they're on the recording, but the logs don't bear that out. And the real nice thing about this, apart from the disc, is that it contains a beautiful hardcover book with just an unbelievable discography of every variation that came out in the 60s up until the mid 70s or so.
Wow.
And goes through the logs, any available pictures from the Hamburg area are in this book. So it's just a beautiful book to go along with this package. So I'm very glad I made the trip on that basis. Yeah. So another Beatles box set, unexpected, and not from Apple, but that's gonna join all of them over there. All right.
The Beatles
All right.
shelf.
Well, when we end an episode of the Comic Book Bears, we have one final destination. We've had it on every episode of our show, and that's something we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. And we do something very similar here where we woof at something which may be comic book or comic book related. It might be a film or a TV program, even a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener, or potentially viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start, as I always do, with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
So my woof of the week goes out to the Bookmarks Festival of Books and Authors that took place in Winston-Salem here, North Carolina, last weekend. It was a 4-day festival where a lot of authors were invited to come and, do book signings, do panels, and just make themselves available for the Bookmarks team. And Bookmarks is a nonprofit bookstore, independent bookstore here in Winston-Salem that is excellent. I'm a long-term patron of it since I moved here. And they have some really cool swag. I got one of their tote bags, and that is their mascot for the book festival, Bruce the bear. And he's looking pretty cute, even though he's miffed for some reason. But there's just so much great stuff here. I got to meet several authors, listen to some wonderful talks, and picked up some pretty cool books. So including a collection of North Carolina haunting ghost stories and horror stories. Also picked up a recent novella from ML Rio, Graveyard Shift. That's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to reading that. And then also for Murderino fans, Whack Job, A History of Axe Murder by Rachel McCarthy James, who I actually met and talked with, and she signed the book. But she is hilarious, and this is actually exactly what it says. It is a history of axe murder from prehistory to now, and why it's a very interesting way of killing people. So enjoy. She also was a contributor to Man on the Train, if you're familiar with that book, about a serial killer in the early 1900s who rode the train around the U.S. and killed potentially over 100 victims with an axe. So, yeah, that was my woof.
Okay. All right. So for my woof of the week, I'm going to ask Steve to put up the graphic that I provided. If you would be so kindly to do that before I start talking about it.
It is cued.
Here it comes. Here it comes. Are we ready? Here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes. Boom! Into the Void, a Hulu original docuseries, which is subtitled Life, Death, and Heavy Metal. It provides 8, as it says there, 8 music legends, countless brutal truths. I was able to watch the first 5 episodes of this 8-episode series. So the ones that I covered were the ones on the death metal group Death. There's a punk group called Death. Judas Priest Trial, and a group I did not know about at all called NME, out of a pre-grunge Seattle. I also watched the Randy Rhoads episode, and also the episode about Wendy O. Williams from the Plasmatics. If you enjoy the dark side of series, whether it be wrestling or football or any of those versions, there's a lot of similarities in how things are structured. But it's in a lot of ways much more poignant than some of the dark side episodes can be. Got 3 episodes to go. I hope there's more to this, because God knows there's more stories to tell out of the denizens of the heavy metal world, and it treats the subject matter, it treats the subjects and the genre itself with a hell of a lot of respect, without being sensational. And the 5 of the 8 episodes I've watched have all been very worthwhile. Looking forward to catching the remainder. That's on Hulu. Into the Void, Life, Death, and Heavy Metal. And that's my woof of the week.
Cool. I do need to watch that, because it is on my list, because I'm a huge
and like I said, I know
fan.
We watch Dark Side, and could care less about the people that they cover. Maybe we care about them afterwards. But this is it's very much cut from the same cloth. And Steve, I'm certain you will enjoy this. Okay. Certain you will. All right. Well, that's another episode of the Comic Book Bears. A little deviation tonight, talking about films, but still with the comic book umbilical cord attached to it. And as I said, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on most of the social media platforms as Comic Book Bears. On Facebook, we are Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, you can do so through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and almost any of the other major podcasting platforms. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you've joined us tonight live, thank you. If you were watching us later on our YouTube channel, thank you. Please like and subscribe. So until next time, which unfortunately will not be in 2 weeks, but maybe in 3 weeks. Until that time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
If you're listening to the audio version, you're going to hear a woof and an explosion. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Woof.